It was supposed to be an ordinary red-eye flight. March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 prepared for departure from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing. 239 souls aboard. Businessmen, families, engineers, children sleeping against window panes. A quiet night sky waited, unremarkable, forgiving, eternal. At 12:41 a.m., the Boeing 777 rolled down runway 32R, its twin Rolls-Royce engines humming like distant thunder. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and First Officer Farik Hamid guided the aircraft into the darkness over the South China Sea. Routine calls were made. The weather was calm. Nothing unusual. Then, silence. At 1:21 a.m., as the plane crossed into Vietnamese airspace, its transponder went dark. No distress call. No emergency squawk. Just a final phrase. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments later, the radar signature vanished. The world had lost a plane. And within hours, a global search had begun for something that should have been impossible to lose, a commercial jet the size of a building. The ocean was vast. The data was confusing. And the truth was drowning somewhere between them. The control room at Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Center was lit by screens glowing soft green. Air controllers tracked routine flights over the South China Sea. Then a blink, MH370's identifier disappeared. Radar contact lost, an officer murmured, checking the backup feed. Still nothing. At first they assumed equipment failure. Transponders drop off briefly, it happens. But as minutes became 20, then 30, their tone changed. Vietnam had no sign either. The sky was empty. By 2:30 a.m., Malaysia's Rescue Coordination Center was alerted. 2 hours after takeoff, no one knew where a massive jet was. The word "missing" was uttered for the first time. At dawn, families in Beijing waited behind arrival gate glass. The monitor still read on time. Only later would the letters change to delayed, then cancelled. Phones kept ringing in empty seats. The search began in the South China Sea, ships, planes, satellite pings. But data soon hinted at something impossible. After its signal vanished, the plane had turned back toward Malaysia. Then it kept flying for hours. In the control tower recordings, you can hear the shift from confusion to fear. Operators speak in short sentences, as if whispering a secret no one should hear. "We don't know where it is. It's gone." Outside, the first press headlines called it a disaster. But it was worse than that, it was an absence. And absence is harder to grieve than death. The Malaysian government declared a full search operation. 40 ships, 30 aircraft, multiple nations, from Vietnam to Australia, combed the sea. For days, they found nothing. No debris, no oil slick, no signal. Every lead ended in waves. Families were relocated to a hotel in Kuala Lumpur. Rooms became makeshift command centers of hope, walls covered in maps, passenger photos, and timetables. Relatives refused to leave. Some prayed. Others shouted at officials. Reporters filled the hallways, broadcasting grief as breaking news. Then came a break, or what looked like one. Malaysian military radar had recorded a blip moving west, back across the peninsula. If it was MH370, the plane had reversed course entirely. This was no accident. Someone was flying it. The search zone expanded by thousands of miles. Ocean currents, wind patterns, and fuel consumption models were fed into supercomputers. Yet the results were contradictory. Australia's Prime Minister addressed the world. "We are searching for a needle in a haystack, in the dark." The families watched each broadcast like a courtroom verdict. Some still believed their loved ones were alive, perhaps on an island. Others begged for truth, even if it hurt. The silence was inhuman. Every hour without answers was a new kind of torture. The search area shifted south, toward the Indian Ocean. It was a region so remote that few ships crossed it. Sonar maps revealed nothing but darkness, and the darkness looked back. The first week broke the illusion of cooperation. Malaysia was accused of hiding information. Other nations complained about delays. Conspiracy threads multiplied. Investigators examined the transponder shutdown, a manual act done from inside the cockpit. Who did it, and why? The Inmarsat satellite team in London found strange handshakes, automated signals between the plane and a satellite every hour. From these, they triangulated an arc over the southern Indian Ocean. It meant the plane had kept flying for nearly 7 hours after contact was lost. The data was mathematical, but its implications were human. If it flew for 7 hours, why did no one call, text, or signal? Were they alive? Were they conscious? Was the plane a ghost gliding on autopilot? The world split into two camps, those who believed in mechanical failure, and those who saw deliberate intent. Inside the crisis room, investigators argued over maps. Diplomats argued over blame. And in living rooms across the globe, families argued over hope. In Beijing, a mother held a photo of her son in pilot training. She whispered, "He's not dead. I can feel him breathe." Outside, reporters recorded the tears as proof of life. But emotion is no substitute for evidence. By the second month, international trust fractured completely. China accused Malaysia of incompetence. Australia quietly took charge of the search. The United States remained diplomatically distant but technically involved. In the midst of chaos, the plane's fate became not a question of physics, but politics. Every mystery needs a protagonist. Or a villain. Sometimes both wear the same face. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was 53, a veteran pilot with 18,000 hours of flight time. Friends described him as meticulous, funny, and devoted to aviation. He built his own flight simulator at home, a tower of screens and joysticks in his study. To some, that was dedication. To others, a warning. When investigators searched his computer, they found a deleted flight path, one that ended deep in the southern Indian Ocean. The same region where MH370 likely went down. The press went wild. Pilot suicide. Deliberate crash. Headlines were cruel, final. But for those who knew him, it made no sense. He had no debts, no disciplinary issues, no signs of distress. Just a man who loved flying and shared photos of his garden. His family refused to believe it. They called him a scapegoat for a government afraid of admitting failure. His daughter said, "He was not a killer. He was a pilot." But the data remained, the turn back, the altitude changes, the long flight into nowhere. Someone was in control until the end. The cockpit voice recorder was never found. The black box never spoke. And so the world invented its own voices for him, guilty, innocent, lonely, heroic. Each version was true to someone. None could be proven. As one investigator put it quietly, sometimes the person who knew the truth is the one who's missing. By April 2014, the search had cost more than most nations' annual budgets. Tens of thousands of square miles of ocean were scanned with sonar, satellites, and autonomous subs. Each pass returned the same verdict: nothing. And when science fails, imagination fills the void. Theory 1, the mechanical catastrophe. Some engineers believed an electrical fire in the avionics bay disabled communications, forcing the crew to turn back. They argued the plane continued on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. But others countered, if that were true, why no emergency call? The transponder was manually switched off. That wasn't fire. That was intent. Theory 2, the hypoxia event. A slow cabin decompression rendered everyone unconscious. The autopilot then guided the empty plane into oblivion. A peaceful death, they said. But radar data showed altitude changes, climbs and dives inconsistent with a plane on autopilot. Theory 3, hijacking. Rumors of a hijack circulated. Could terrorists have redirected the flight? No group ever claimed responsibility. Intelligence agencies scoured networks, nothing. Even ISIS, in its earliest days of media hunger, stayed silent. Silence can sometimes scream louder than any confession. Theory 4, the shadow operation. Then came the darker stories, that MH370 carried sensitive cargo, perhaps military electronics or data drives, and that an unknown government diverted it mid-air. Satellite gaps, radar anomalies, suspicious denials. In internet forums, the story grew tendrils: U.S. bases in Diego Garcia, a secret interception, a cover-up. Official agencies dismissed it all as fiction. But to families with no remains, fiction felt like the only thing left alive. In the quiet of late nights, journalists whispered that truth and politics rarely share the same runway. One investigator confided anonymously. Sometimes the truth doesn't vanish, it's buried under national security. July 2015, 16 months after the disappearance. On a remote beach in Réunion Island, a fragment of a wing washed ashore. A local cleanup worker found it, a barnacle-covered piece of flaperon. Its serial number matched MH370. For a brief moment, the world exhaled. Proof. Evidence. Reality again. But then came the questions: if the debris was there, where was the rest of it? Ocean drift models suggested the crash site lay somewhere west of Australia. Still, every sonar scan returned black silence. More debris surfaced, fragments in Madagascar, Mozambique, and Tanzania. Each carried the same haunting confirmation: the plane had ended in the ocean. But even proof failed to quiet doubt. Some families accused officials of planting evidence. Others demanded DNA testing, chain of custody logs, independent verification. The world had spent too long in shadows to trust the light. In Kuala Lumpur, an elderly father sat in his living room with a map spread on the floor. He pointed to the blue emptiness between coordinates. "My son is in there somewhere," he said softly, "but he's not alone." The search continued for years, shifting from governments to private contractors. Ocean Infinity, a robotics firm, took over in 2018 using autonomous subs. They mapped more ocean floor than any mission before them. And yet, nothing. No fuselage. No black boxes. Only deeper water. By 2020, official searches ceased. The case was closed. But mysteries don't obey closure. They echo. A decade later, MH370 remains one of humanity's most profound disappearances, a modern myth born from data and grief. The final official report, 1,500 pages of analysis, offered no definitive cause. Only the phrase, "the possibility of unlawful interference cannot be excluded." Investigators, journalists, and armchair detectives still argue across continents. Some claim the pilot simulator was the key, a practice run for suicide. Others insist it was a hijack gone wrong. A few hold to the theory of interception, or an accidental missile strike hidden beneath diplomacy. But beneath every theory runs a single human truth: we cannot accept uncertainty. Our minds rebel against vanishing. We would rather believe in conspiracies than in silence. The Indian Ocean, 10 million square kilometers wide, remains both a grave and a mirror, reflecting not wreckage, but obsession. One researcher from the ATSB once said, "We think the sea keeps secrets. But the sea doesn't lie, we just don't listen long enough." At night, ocean currents still drift pieces of plastic and metal across unseen tides. Somewhere out there, under miles of water and silt, lies a cockpit that will never speak again. 2 seats, empty. Dials frozen. A black box whispering a question no one can answer. Why? There are mysteries that science can solve. And then there are mysteries that live between mathematics and faith. Flight MH370 belongs to the second kind. It reminds us that modernity is not infallible, that even in an age of satellites and live streams, one metal bird can slip through every digital net and vanish into myth. For the families, the story is not over. Some still keep toothbrushes of the missing in bathroom cups, as if waiting for the door to open. Some still wake at 1:21 a.m., the moment contact was lost, because their hearts remember what the world forgot. But for the rest of us, MH370 is a mirror. It reflects how little control we have over our machines, our systems, our skies, and how easily the world can lose faith in both reason and truth. In every airport boarding call, in every jet gliding through the dark, a silent echo follows. Good night, Malaysian 370. The flight that vanished still flies, in questions, in memory, in the restless ocean of human curiosity.